So growing up in the 1960s and then the 70s was challenging on a few fronts for my father. Uh, to get into the what kind of traumatized him as a kid, I guess, would have been the very scary what would be the word the daunting figure, the like, yeah, scary, pretty scary for a young child. That of his father. His father was very tall for a start, and he was very strong as well, as a farmer would be. And his wife, my granny, would have been small. Like was small, and they've both passed on as well. I'll get into those stories in a bit after my dad and mother and stuff. But yeah, it was more just the punishments and his attitude that I guess that like he like I'm sure he gave the spanking and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit of uh, fluff or something from my eyelid, but uh, so it's not like it's the beatings or anything like that. I've never heard anything such as that, but one thing would be like the kind of like the way my dad said was more like because there was so many, and this was very recent. He told me like, which does make sense. Uh, which he told me in this way was that there were so many of us in that house that like, his father looked at him like a strange. Like looked at my dad, and he looked at his son, my dad, as more of a stranger, and vice versa. My dad viewed him as a stranger in a way because there were so many people there, and like I'm sure, like my grandfather was busy and stuff like that and doing his own thing, but yeah, he would have felt distant, and he definitely wasn't the best father. Like there's stories I might want to keep for the future. Like because I just remembered one. It involves an axe. You know what an axe is, don't you? Uh, but yeah, I want to keep that for now. Don't worry, it's not bloody. It could have been, but yeah, my grandfather, he wasn't really crazy. He was more just cruel. Uh, but growing up in that was a pretty harsh environment mentally, and I, like going into to cover all of my dad's brothers and sisters and himself into one kind of sentence is basically saying that all of their upbringing, like each one of them would have has suffered mental trauma, and to this day they all have some form of mental illness, and that's very sad. Like there's ones with depression, there's ones that are like cruel themselves. Like there's bitter people, there's people who call the police on one of their family for no reason. They're basically attacking in some form, and it's very petty, things. It's like an infighting for no reason because they want someone else to fight with. Like my dad doesn't like a few brothers, but what he does is he just doesn't talk to them. He ignores them, and perhaps if like he would be the bigger man and actually say hello, like first, or maybe hello back if they were walking on the street and they walked past. But like my dad has stuff stolen from, and like he's been reported. Like I said, like there's like random things with different family members, not mine. Like not my dad, but them phoning the police on each other, and nonsense like that. It's like something you would see a kid doing as a prank, like at 9 years old or something, thinking that it's funny and cool, not as 40, 50 year olds. It is really, really stupid and strange, babe. And it is embarrassing my family's like that. And one thing you'll definitely learn is that when I say I hate the Elliot family, I don't necessarily mean that. No, I hate what they've become. They're still family. I honestly can't say I love them. I wish I could. I try to forgive my enemies and forgive and to love, like as best as I can to become a great person. But no, my dad's family are toxic, and my mother said it for years that like to stay clear from them. Like, and I've done that. That's why, if you remember, babe, I asked you very early on and to our talking together and a relationship. Very early on, I asked you to block them, and you were telling me about the recommendeds and things like that. And yes, I could definitely any Elliot you see on Facebook, even like it may not necessarily be one of my dad's family because Elliot is an extremely popular name. Then like, still just block it. Like it is a very popular name over in the UK, but it's still just best to block anybody with the surname Elliot because like, as I said, they are so petty with the smallest things. Like they would even talk about things on Facebook that they've saw about someone's. Like they're not only better to their family members, but they're better to other random people. Like maybe even their friends. Like or the people that they don't like. Like. But yeah, I will get into kind of a whole list of them. To tell you about. But uh, yeah, my dad had to go through living with like all of this, and his dad, and what I always remember is that my dad said my granny stayed in the kitchen, and my grandfather was elsewhere, and yeah, it's not a cohesive, loving family. Like like in my dad's eyes, yeah, like it has a broken system, and it definitely affected my dad in an extremely negative way, and it never excuses anything that he later done, but it gives an understanding of why he would have had so certain thoughts and certain fears, and also gives an indication of his parenting style that he instinctively chose, and it was actually positive. Like, it built on uh, how he was raised, and he built on that. He tried to do better, and I want to do better one day, but I will tell you about that when I get to when I was born. But uh, so during his early life, before he was 10, the event called the Troubles began in Northern Ireland, and basically it's a civil war. Like like the story of the Troubles goes back, like all the way back to the 1920s, in a sense, because our, I don't want to get into all. I could even make a part of a story, like, but I'll explain very quickly. Uh, there's Northern Ireland, and then there's the Republic of Ireland. So the Republic of Ireland are an independent country, whereas the Northern Ireland are part of the United Kingdom. And as the United Kingdom, we are part of the Kingdom of England. And before, all of Ireland was under the Kingdom of England. But in the 1920s, a civil war broke out, and a was yeah, it was it was very early 1920s, and they gained independence. I don't know most of the story myself. Actually, I don't. I'm not really interested in it because I hate all the nonsense politics over here. I actually know way more about American politics and American history than I do about my own countries. But, uh, but yes, the Civil War ended with the the like the people that were trying to get independence won, and they managed to uh, get about 3 quarters of the country, or maybe 2/3. Yeah, I would say it's more. It's more. I'm I'm very exact with things. Maybe 3/5. Yeah, I know I'm being that kind of like pointlessly precise, but yeah, I think it would be more accurate to call it 3/5 of the country. So they haven't got all the country back, but they got most of the country back, and like Northern Ireland is what remains of what used to be the like Ireland being under the rule of the British, and yeah, in the 1970s, like basically civil war flared up again because both sides, like were the unionists who want the status quo and they want to stay in the Kingdom of Ireland, and they're supporters of uh, the English culture, the English people, the English, the crown and the Queen, you know, whereas the what would you call me? Why my brain's not working because I hear all the time the Republicans, like they are for gaining independence completely, and back in the 1970s they did it by sheer violence, and it's very tragic. Like if there was soldiers on each other's side, sorry, if there was like genuine soldiers being murdered or being just fundamentally killed, then okay, they're soldiers. They know what they're getting into. It's tragic, but they're soldiers, and that's what happens a lot throughout the world. However, the horrible thing what happened was civilians were the target of bombings and shootings on both sides. I hate both sides in this stupid situation because basically, like Republicans would go out to kill loyalists or unionists, same kind of thing. Republicans would go out to kill people on the other side, and then the unionists would try to kill people on their other side. Like the Republicans, like and it wouldn't just be members of whatever side; it would be civilians that are one side and another. And it's also to do with religion as well, because uh, people in Ireland are Catholic, and people in Northern Ireland and England are Protestant. It's still Christian, but it is all it's all Christian. Sorry, I thought I heard next door, and I thought maybe I was being a bit too loud. I don't think I am. Not that there was anything. I just thought I heard the door close, and I thought, what if I'm I'm annoying my neighbours? But I don't know. But no, I like both sides were, killing innocent people, young people, and yeah, there's another story I want to tell as well, which could be part of its own story as well. So I can tell you about the axe story, and two, I could tell you about the uh, the August 1998 incident, and that's not even a laughing matter. It's a very horrible thing, but I won't spoil for now. It's not a fun spoiler. It's a very tragic one, and it could have been tragic for me too. Uh, but I will go into that another time. So I can use that as, like more content for a random kind of getting to know me story. So hopefully that, like is understandable to you, because it doesn't necessarily talk about. But that's the history, like so back in the 70s, like my dad was risen in a Protestant household, and obviously he didn't choose it, and neither did his parents, but because at school, even my dad said he could hear bombs, like at times, not like something like World War II or anything, but something like, like he's in school and he hears some bomb going off, like it wasn't that shocking, like, and my mum has these stories too, which I will touch on in her story and her video, but yeah, like growing up, that I can't believe what that would have been like. And eventually, my dad kind of took on the kind of ideology of the loyalist unionist side. And even though he wasn't part of the war in any way, he was a supporter of the. Oh, sorry, it's just my tray. My dad was a supporter of the loyalist side. So he was like he wasn't part of the war, but he was on one side, and I can understand that because it's basically being radicalized when you're young. Because if you're around a lot of people who have one ideology and they all say the same thing to you, you try to fit in, you try to like, be yourself, but you can't help but being pulled in that one direction. And it's very hard to kind of, when you're young, it's very hard to kind of shift gears and be yourself. And thankfully, my dad has shifted gears way, way later than this. But yeah, like nowadays he would, he wouldn't be part of the unionists anymore. He hates both sides just like I am, because it's such a complex and stupid situation. Like like when I say I can't make sense of it. Politicians in this country can't make sense of it, and it's the repercussions of the 1970s are still being felt today, not in violence, but more in political parts. But uh, so yeah, like my dad grew up, like with all that as well. So that would, like I can't blame his mother or father for that one. Like growing up, that would have been very confusing, very weird and scary, very scary. But I can't blame the parents for that one. Uh, Sorry, I'm just looking at. Yes, yes. Sorry, I was just looking at the list because I don't want to forget anything in particular. So sorry, I had to look at the list on my phone. But yeah, like my dad, like I mentioned earlier in the video, that he done certain farm work, and yeah, like he has a large interest in farming. Like more as a hobby. He actually goes to a farm these days, where it's like a community thing for people with mental health issues. So it's a place to go to relax. You don't need to work. You could just go there and chill out and stuff, but you're going to an actual farm, and a husband and wife own the farm, and you can do as little or as much as you want. My dad's a go-getter, so he does things around the farm, and he was brought up like that. He wasn't an extreme farmer or anything, but he uh, he takes to all that. He likes that because he grew up on it. So that's basically his in a way his dream. Just to be surrounded with stuff like that. So it actually does help him because uh, he isn't as lonely and he gets to mix with other people. And I'm not embarrassed by saying it. If other people are embarrassed saying, "Oh gosh, he has a father that has to go to this for mental health," then yeah, I don't care. I don't care how anybody, if anybody felt like that, because I love my dad and I will always defend him. So, no, I wouldn't take that from anybody. Because he didn't choose to get, uh, he didn't choose to be born in that family. No one does, and unfortunately, he grew up in the 1960s in he calls his dad, a dictator, like, so that's just a kind of preview of what you think, my grandfather on my dad's side to be like. So, like a very, very tough situation. So you can understand why he has mental health issues. So, like he didn't bring it on to himself or anything. And pretty much most people in the world that have mental health issues don't bring it on themselves. Like it's when they have it later in life, if they actually go to fix it or to ease these symptoms or to understand the root cause of it, to then turn things around and try to move yourself into a more positive framework. Only then, like then that's taking charge, that's doing something about it. But you can't choose to be shoved into a family that like it's got 12 people in it, and like it's all basically one giant mess, and then the country's in a mess too. So yeah, it's awful. Like he's not like completely damaged and crazy or anything like that. Like he is smart, and like he has had a in terms of Northern Ireland, yeah, he's had a pretty normal enough life from someone that lived back then, if that makes sense. So anybody his age kind of has had a life similar enough to that, like with mental health issues, with maybe, so a lot of them would still have another, another partner, like, or still be with their original partner, or just be split up. So my dad's in the split up category. But yeah, there's a lot of people my dad's age, maybe a bit older and maybe a bit younger, but they have kind of similar uh, kind of stories in a way, because my dad's definitely not the only one to go through things like that. But uh, yeah, there's different sides, like to other people as well. And my dad's, as I said, he's not the only one, and like I'm super proud of him for telling me. And like men don't usually come out and go all emotional and stuff like that. There, women do, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like women tend though, because women are naturally born to be mothers, they're naturally more caring. So, like that's why a ton of women are nurses. There's men nurses, which I think is weird, but okay, if they want to do it, that's fine. But a nursing job, you have to have a lot of care in your job, and like being a woman that cares, like, does that job. But What was my point? Oh God. Um, oh my God. What was the point? I was going to pause, but that's cheating. Um, I was talking. Uh, I don't think it's because I'm tired. My eyes are very tired, and I don't want to sleep. I'd rather had a sleep. My brain feels fine. It's just my eyes because there's a big bright light in the TV that I purposefully made it like that because it's to get more lighting on my face. But there's also uh, this light and uh, and the light from the phone as well. So and obviously the lamp. I can't remember what I was talking about. Eh. Um, yeah, what I'm gonna do is stop this and I will go back to see what I was talking about. I'm so embarrassed. I will see you in a second.